Welcome to AARP Connecticut in your community. Hi, I'm Elaine Warner. I am your host for today's program. I am on staff with the AARP Connecticut statewide nonprofit office, where we do advocacy and community outreach. We come to you in your local community with AARP's purpose in mind, and that is to empower you to choose how you live as you age. We hope to empower you, your family, and friends today with information on the impact of the Hispanic Latino community in Connecticut. Did you know that the Latino and Hispanic community is one of the fastest growing communities in America this decade? According to the most recent American Community Survey, there are now some 6.3 million more Hispanics living in America than in 2010. That is almost a 15% increase. That percentage growth is the third largest percentage change for any race, according to the census race and ethnicity definition. But how has that increase impacted our state of Connecticut? Turns out there's been a 28% increase in the Hispanic Latino population in Connecticut, with Hispanic Latinos making up 16% of Connecticut's overall population, or more than 500,000 of Connecticut's total residents. Connecticut has the 11th highest percentage of Hispanic Latino residents to our total population nationwide, with a ranking of one of the most diverse states in America. Thus, we are going to explore today how AARP Connecticut has responded to these significant numbers of Hispanic Latino Connecticut residents in a variety of program areas. The title of our show today is Connecticut Hispanic Latino Connections, with none other than our very own AARP Connecticut lead volunteer and executive council member, Marilyn Diaz. Welcome, Marilyn.
Hi, Elaine. Thank you so very much for having me on.
It is a pleasure. Hola, Marilyn. So Marilyn, just a little bit of background on you. After more than 3 decades of service, Ms. Diaz retired from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. She has an undergraduate degree from the University of Connecticut, a master's of public administration from the University of Hartford, and received her law degree from the Columbus School of Law in Washington, D.C. At the AARP national level, Marilyn is a member of the Volunteer Facilitation Training Team, sharing AARP Connecticut's best volunteer practices around the nation, making me and our staff very proud, Marilyn, sharing what we think we do best with the country. Marilyn is also a member of AARP Connecticut's Executive Council, involved in strategic planning with the AARP Connecticut staff. She is also one of the 5 original master trainers for the Disrupt Aging Classroom, a program that debunks the stereotypes surrounding aging. And she is a long-term board member of the Connecticut Hispanic Bar Association, formerly serving as its president. Marilyn, you actively participate in a number of AARP volunteer activities. They include volunteer recruitment, advocacy, Frogwatch network, utility choices, work and save, and Latino and Hispanic issues are focus today. And my favorite thing about you, Marilyn, is your inspiring motto in life, which is live, learn, and pass it on, always enhanced by your high energy and passion. So welcome again, Marilyn, and thank you for all you bring to Connecticut volunteerism.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that kind introduction.
Well, all true facts. So let's begin. Talk a little bit, Marilyn, if you will, about your personal Hispanic Latino background. I know you have roots to Puerto Rico, ties to Puerto Rico. So tell us a little bit about your personal history.
Personally, so I was born in New York. That's probably why I have that little attitude. But I was born in New York. At the age of 11, we moved to Puerto Rico. My first language was English. So when I went to Puerto Rico, my A's and B's were in Spanish and in math because I had to learn the language. And so those were kind of rough years for me between the ages of 11 to 14 when we moved to Connecticut. And I went to good old Hartford High. And as you said, University of Hartford and UConn. And here we are, but I've always been very proud of my Latino ties and especially being a Puerto Rican.
And as you say, learning the language as a teenager, so to speak, is a rough time to do that, but obviously have mastered it quite well over the years. Tell us also what I like to call, Marilyn, your journey story to ARP. We know about your career. You told us a little bit about your background, but what led you to ARP? And I'm going to preface your response with, I distinctly remember the evening I met you now years ago in Hartford, actually, for an evening of ARP facts, food, fun, and even flamenco guitar music, right?
That's exactly right. And so, you know, you talked about the various programs that I'm involved with. When I got to that event, I was amazed at the plethora of programs that ARP has, that in the Latino community, which ARP's main purpose for being there was just that, to be in the community and provide knowledge about the various programs that we had. So I was very, very much intrigued. Yes, it was fun. Yes, there was food. Yes, there was wine. And yes, there was wonderful entertainment. But it was the facts that drew me. So many programs affecting our community, yet we weren't involved with it. So I said, you know what? ARP is talking the talk. Let's see if they walk the walk. And the only way I could make sure that that happened was if I became part of that solution. So that's what made me become an ARP member. And I have not regretted a moment of it.
Well, thank you, and a ditto from our end. Beginning of your engagement with us and all you bring with your connections to the community and your passion and your motto for life. Marilyn, certainly there are cultural distinctions that we should be aware of in the Hispanic Latino. Certainly, as we present our ARP program areas, what are some of those distinctions, nuances, awareness that we should have? And I'm thinking in particular when, and you tell me if I'm correct, in programs like caregiving and financial security.
Yeah, and even Frogwatch.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, so there are some cultural distinctions, and it's not just the language. I mean, I went through a cultural shock when I moved to Puerto Rico, right? Not knowing the language. So I experienced it firsthand. And when you do presentations, the thing I like about ARP is that, again, it is geared towards community. Every time we go out, we do a presentation, but it's about learning and sharing knowledge. And when you do a presentation, you have to know your audience. And the best way to do that is by sharing your experiences, right? So if I can tell a story about my abuelita, about how my grandmother influenced my life, about how we took care of my titi recently, actually, with the Hurricane Maria. Not recently, but during Hurricane Maria, I became a caregiver for my aunt and uncle. That experienced a lot of different things along with health issues as a result of that hurricane. And so being able to share those stories, the cultural, even eating the food, and being able to overcome those distinctions. So caregiving, Frogwatch, when someone, we're very caring and open people, and then someone calls you and becomes your friend and you're very trusting, and that happens for all of us, of course. But when you could relay those stories in a way that people can relate to them, it makes a big difference and an impact when they see the face and see that you have those shared experiences. So like I said, it's beyond just the language. It's being able to share those beautiful stories and history that we have together.
And that's the way you can connect beautifully with the ARP audiences. And of course, you speak the language as well. I do remember your time with your relatives after the last hurricane in Puerto Rico, and them, you talk about cultural distinctions. I know you cared for them in the state of Connecticut also, and just them adjusting to probably the weather, right? And the cultural distinctions coming to Connecticut, right?
The weather, the food, the language, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So important for all of us, whether we're Hispanic Latino background or not, that we share the sensitivities to the Hispanic Latino community and remain aware of that. A word I love about what ARP does in the community, Marilyn, I know you share this with me. We have an intergenerational mentality to the work that we do. So we do, of course, ARP is known for advocating on behalf of the 50-plus-year-old population. However, it's not only the 50-plus population that we speak to. I'm thinking here again, livable communities, disrupt aging, financial security, right? So what do we mean by intergenerational, Marilyn? And then if you can talk about it from a Hispanic Latino cultural perspective.
Well, for me, I've always said to anyone, even though we say we address the issues and do advocacy on behalf of those that are 50 plus, I challenge anyone to mention just one single program of ARP that does not affect everyone, regardless of age. Livable communities, for one, what we're talking about is open spaces, people feeling safe in the neighborhood. Yeah, we want that for our 50 plus, but we also want it for our entire neighborhood, right? And I'll tell you, one of the things that Livable Communities talks about is accessory dwelling units, and that's being able to build an additional unit on a single family site. And that's something that Connecticut is working on, ARP in Connecticut is working on. Well, let me tell you, you know what? In Puerto Rico, they've been doing that forever. People have been building on top of their own homes to be able to bring in their parents or the seniors in their lives, people that they need to take care of. So again, we think about everyone, regardless of age. How do we balance that? And Disrupt Aging is about just that. It's a class that we do, and we'll talk a little bit about more of that in a little while, but Disrupt Aging is about getting rid of those stereotypes that because someone is a certain age, they can't do anything. They can't do certain things. They can't bike anymore. Well, that's not true. And that's why we want livable communities and people being able to share their stories with one another and bringing together those strong neighborhoods.
And Marilyn, ARP says livable communities are from the cradle to the walker to the wheelchair, however old we get to be, which many of us are living longer. I didn't realize what you were saying about accessory dwelling units, the proliferation in Puerto Rico. Seems to me that ARP has something to learn from that. And that's certainly a cultural distinction. Years ago, parents and grandparents automatically lived with families in America, but less so today. But hopefully we're getting back to that so we can provide the important care. Let's get to some of the program areas that you've touched upon, Marilyn. The Frogwatch Network, a very robust program for ARP, not only Connecticut, but ARP nationwide. What is that network program? And speak about it from your multilingual presentations also.
Yeah, so Frogwatch Network is a very popular, especially nowadays, network within ARP where we talk about the different scams that are going on. The most popular that's going on right now, we've heard in the news, are the romance scams, right? Or the grandmother scam, when somebody calls you and says, tu nieto, your grandson Johnny has been jailed and he needs money to get out of prison, or we're stuck in Cancun and I need some money to get back home. They're not true. Johnny is sitting next to you sometimes, and you have people making you believe that they need to send money somewhere. So the Frogwatch Network, what it does is that it tracks these scammers. We encourage people to report scams, to report it to the police, to report it to our existing networks, and to be able to stop that, share that information. And the way that we're so effective is because people do report and we do share that information. So even though romance scams are something that's lately been in the news, we've been talking about it for the last year at ARP and trying to prevent these things from happening. When it comes to the multilingual presentations, it's a very important subject for everyone to know about. And so, as a matter of fact, my fellow volunteer, because I am not the solo Latino volunteer within Connecticut ARP, yay, we got a whole big team, yay, team. But one of those is my cousin Migdalia. And she and I translated one of those Frogwatch network presentations, and actually, and it was unique, and National said, wow, we want to do that too, which is having a side-by-side presentation of the Frogwatch network presentation, both in Spanish and in English, simultaneously, so that people in the audience, let us not forget, a lot of times people think that because you have a Latino last name, that you speak Spanish automatically. That's not the case. And so we have, especially with intergenerational presentations, we have people that speak only Spanish, people that only speak English. We're able to bring everybody into the room and do that presentation simultaneously so that everyone can then have that group discussion together. And of course, we do it all in Spanish too.
Yes, and thank you for those translations, Marilyn. And we have about 45 plus Frogwatch active volunteers with us. Contact information for me is going to be on the screen. And again, I'm the program specialist for volunteer engagement. So if you're interested in that program, either Spanish speaking or not, we can certainly hook you up with that particular program as well. Another program we're very proud of, Marilyn, is what is being called My Connecticut Savings. What is the importance of that program to the Hispanic Latino community? And I know that the Spanish American Merchants Association has also played a role in that.
Yep. So My Connecticut Savings, we're very proud in Connecticut to have to be one of the, I think there were about 25, well, one of the cities across the country, states across the country, because ARP is very much concerned about people being able to continue to live, as you said, well, healthy, in their best lives. Well, a lot of times retirement, Social Security is not enough. So we encourage people to start saving early. And ARP here in Connecticut advocated for this program called My Connecticut Savings, which requires employers that have 5 or more employees to provide a vehicle for their employees to put into a savings account. Very successful with that. It is now the law, and we conducted so it affects those small minority businesses. And it was very, very important to make sure that these small businesses were aware of this law and the impact that it was going to have on them, because failure to do so, to comply with this law, could result in fact in fines. And so I did outreach to the Spanish American Merchants Association here in Connecticut, and they are part of the pilot program that's going on for then eventual full implementation within Connecticut. So I'm very proud of the fact that they're in right at the very beginning and weren't caught off guard for something that will impact the employers, the employees, and the future of individuals in the state of Connecticut.
And if you'd like more information again about anything we're talking about, we just mentioned My Connecticut Savings. You can also email us, ctarp@arp.org. Just ask your question. We will get the answer for you. And Marilyn, we were talking just a few minutes ago about intergenerational aspect of ARP Connecticut. Certainly applies to My Connecticut Savings, because we're talking to people when they're younger. Start saving when you're younger is the best time to start. And also with the Frogwatch network, everybody is impacted by that. So Marilyn, you have a vast network, great relationships in the Hispanic Latino community. We're so happy that that's such an asset for us at ARP. Touch on a little bit, I'm going to name some of them, but either your involvement and or ARP's involvement. Let's take the Hispanic Health Council.
Yeah, so like I said, it's not just me. We have a cadre of Latino volunteers who are involved, and whether it's SAMA, which we just talked about, the Hispanic Health Council, where we have done in concert with Anna Alfaro and her show, toy drives, promoted COVID, worked with the Red Cross. The San Juan Center also was a recent recipient of our Community Challenge grant. And I should say, I should have mentioned them earlier on with the Livable Communities, because their grant was for just that, to enhance the living conditions and have some open spaces for one of their elderly developments. We partnered with Sudol Taino because we firmly believe in healthy eats and healthy beats is what we called our series. Very successful. We had a session where people learned how to cook healthy Latino food. And Sudol Taino created a class just for us so that we can go in and do some exercises for half an hour. So those kinds of things would not happen if our volunteers did not have those connections with those agencies that bring credibility, and it's a joint effort together to expand the knowledge of what ARP offers. ARP has been very good at being sponsors of certain events, and again, of getting the word out. At one of the at one of the sessions, actually on healthy beats, somebody came up to me and said, "Marilyn, how come ARP is at all of these events?" And that's exactly what we want to hear. Why are you here? It's not just, we're there with the red shirts, but we're there for a reason, and it's to share the information that we have available and because we care. And I love the fact that that person came up to me and said, "We've been seeing you a lot lately. How come?" And when I say you, I mean ARP, because again, I can't thank enough my fellow Latino volunteers.
Well, and I love to hear that, Marilyn, because we really have a mission to connect with the local community. We also have regional impact teams throughout the state. Marilyn is a lead for the Greater Hartford Regional Impact Team of volunteers. And Marilyn, you mentioned that the San Juan Center was a recipient of the Community Challenge Grant. Want to mention that we do offer two types of challenge grants annually for livable communities. If you want to know more about those, again, please email us at ctarp@arp.org, and we can get you on the list so we can let you know when we offer them. Marilyn said we were proud that you were representing ARP Connecticut nationally as a member of the Volunteer Facilitation Training Team. I know you share some of ARP's Connecticut's best practices across the country. You've helped to lead translations nationwide, but that's an area that other volunteers can aspire to. Just touch on that briefly. What is that training team about, please?
Well, I'm a very proud member of this team of 13 of us volunteers from all around the country. And what we do is help states in doing outreach efforts, anything that's needed to facilitate, to help. Because one of the great things about ARP and being a volunteer is that they treat their volunteers very well. You will always have the tools that you need to accomplish the goal that has been set. And part of what we do with the Volunteer Facilitation Training Team is to help state offices across the country share experiences, share examples. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that, guess what? Now at the national level, anytime they put out a new presentation, it's immediately being translated into Spanish. And just finished interviewing 7 people across the country who have stepped up and said, "I want to help." So we're at COVID led us to doing a lot of Zoom calls, and we're organizing a Spanish speaking speakers bureau, up and coming. So that's part of the fun stuff that we're doing at the national level to spread the word. And you're right, I'm proud of Connecticut and its efforts, sharing all the best practices that we have also.
I love that news about the Bilingual Speakers Bureau, Marilyn. That is fabulous. One of the many fabulous things we're talking about that you have contributed to. Not a lot of time left, but we have to touch on some of our ongoing sponsorships. I'm going to mention 3 of them and just have you respond to what the program, what the organization is. Latino Empower Symposium. What's that?
Latino Empower Symposium started probably about, oh my God, has it been 10 years already? And we were there right at the very beginning. And it is a symposium that's held once a year to focus in on Latinas and how we can support each other. And they are truly Latinas in power. Latino Fest, I think, is the next thing you were going to talk about. And that happens at different cities across Connecticut. And it's just a festival honoring our culture, and there's good times and there's information. We're always there with information and music. Of course, we got the Connecticut Latino sponsorships, Connecticut Latino News to get the word out across the state. And you're right, we're running out of time. So can I make a pitch for volunteers?
I would love for you to do that. The floor is yours. The camera is yours.
Okay, thank you, thank you. As you can see, in the very short period of time, there is so much that AARP has to offer. There is so much that we can do. I'm so proud of our volunteers here, our Hispanic and Latino volunteers, but we need more. We need to spread the word, and I please encourage you all that if you're interested, please contact Elaine. She'll give you further contact information. There's a wealth of resources available, and Elaine can always put you in contact with me directly too, if in fact you have any questions. On that note, I know you have a lot of resources to share, so I'm going to be quiet at this point.
Okay, well, and let me give you my contact information. It's on the screen, but it's Elaine Warner. Please call me directly, 860-548-3169. You can email me at ewarner, WERNER at ARP.org. Marilyn and I both know that there's a wealth of resources available on our ARP website. We will put that on the screen as well. That is www.arp.org. And then we have an ARP Connecticut website also, arp.org/CT. So all of that is available for you. And if you go to the national website, arp.org, you scroll all the way down, you can get all that information in Spanish. So Marilyn Diaz, I want to thank you, our ARP Connecticut lead volunteer, executive council member. We so appreciate you sharing your cultural heritage, your community connections, and that you've decided now for many years to join ARP in promoting our program areas to all in Connecticut, and your focus on the Hispanic Latino community as well. Muchas gracias, Marilyn.
Gracias, Elaine.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank you as a viewer. And if you are a member of ARP Connecticut, you are amongst almost 600,000 in the state of Connecticut. We hope we've empowered you today to be more knowledgeable about how our Connecticut Hispanic Latino community enhances the richness and diversity of life here in Connecticut. We invite you to our ARP events. You can go to arp.org, CT events. Hope to see you there, and be it virtually or otherwise. And volunteering, again, feel free to contact me. We look forward to seeing you again in your local community. And thanks for watching.